Now, that word addiction. Let's first establish what addiction is. Because, you know, there's when we do things too much, and then there's a point where it actually turns to an addiction. So perhaps you want to establish that for us.
Okay. So you know that most of the times, psychiatric terms or even medical terms are many times English language terms that are then brought into medicine. So many times we use addiction loosely, just like the way we use, you know, anxiety and depression loosely. So, but to a psychiatrist, so we talk about addiction when it gets to a point where somebody has cravings for a particular, you know, substance, and he has you know, compulsion, a feeling of wanting to use it, So it
has to be a substance?
Well, it has to be...
Medically?
No, not necessarily just a substance, because now, you know, maybe I should, you know, it's an addiction-provoking substance.
Okay.
You know, so it doesn't have to only be the substance addiction. You know, there are different types of addiction, which we'll get to shortly. Okay. But there's this craving. Apart from the craving, there's some form of difficulty controlling the use. Okay. You know, and there's also now a cycle such that, you know, there's craving, difficulty controlling the use, and when you stop it, you know, you want to resume it again. Yeah,
you feel that urge, that compelling urge to not stop it after all.
Exactly.
Let's talk about what type of addictions they actually are.
All right, so, you know, very commonly, the most common ones, of course, alcohol addiction. Okay. You know, so some people use alcohol occasionally, but it gets to a point where it becomes an addiction. Okay. There is substance use addiction, substance use problem. So we're talking about marijuana, meth, cocaine, and the rest of them. Okay. You know, illicit substances.
So alcohol, substances. Yes. Okay.
Then we also have some other the substances. There are also licit substances. That means legal substances one can get addicted to. So like cigarettes, like caffeine, you know, coffee. You know, then people can. There's also gambling addiction. You know, which is also, you know, becoming a big deal.
These days.
These days.
Yes.
You know, there's gaming addiction, social media addiction. There's also pornography addiction to pornography. You know, and you know, so those are the most common types of addiction.
Okay, so when you've established the fact that someone, or let me use an individual, is addicted to something, how can such a person get help?
All right, so the first thing really is about recognizing the fact that this is beyond me.
This is beyond me. Yes. That's massive. Okay.
So when it is problem drinking, for example, and it's not yet, you know, problem drinking is a group that contains addiction and, you know, some steps before addiction itself. Okay. So when we are talking about those other steps that, yes, it's already becoming a problem, but you are not yet addicted per se, then you can help yourself. Are you getting my point? But immediately it gets into addiction. Addiction is a brain disease.
So you need somebody else to help you. At that point,
you need somebody else to help you because there's a rewiring process that needs to occur, that has occurred. And until we unwire it, in a sense, you know, which cannot just happen at home. That's why you see many people say, okay, I've tried for 3 weeks, and the person goes back again. You know, I've tried for 2 weeks and the person goes back again. You know, so there's need for that accountability. Yeah. You know, indeed, the kind of help for each substance is very different. Okay. So, for example, there are some that are easier to stop than others. Okay. Now, somebody who is hooked on cocaine, for example, you know, will find it a lot more difficult to stop than somebody who is hooked on coffee. You know, so that is why it's a bit heterogeneous. However, one thing that could help for, you know, substances that are not very, you know, that are not as maybe intense, maybe I should use that word, you know, as others, you know, is a kind of gradual reduction. Yeah. So somebody who smokes 2 cartons of 2 packs of cigarettes can decide that, all right, so over the next 1 month, I want to reduce these 2 packets to 5 sticks. Okay. So it begins to remove a stick per day. Till it becomes a thing of the past. Yes. Okay. All right. So that is like the easiest.